Welcome to this professional learning session on Comprehensive Education Plan CEP support visits at schools that have been identified for the additional targeted support and improvement or targeted support and improvement model. My name is William Manikis, and I am Senior Director of State Federal Program Implementation and Field Support within the Division of School Leadership. This presentation is designed to provide superintendents and teams, principals, support visit co-leads, and content area specialists with an overview of the ATSI CEP support visit process and clearly define roles and responsibilities for supporting schools in reflecting on and updating their CEP. For the sake of clarity, throughout this presentation, we will reference A/TSI visits. We are referring to the support visits that will occur at schools identified for either the ATSI, Additional Targeted Support and Improvement, or TSI, Targeted Support and Improvement support model, as ATSI visits, whenever an idea is specific to the schools identified only for the ATSI model. That will be made explicitly clear. We have several learning outcomes for today's session. I will provide some context around the purpose of the ATSI CEP support visits and discuss some of the guidance that we've received from our partners at the New York State Education Department. After that, I'll share the vision and timeline for this process. We'll also discuss the team configuration so you have a better idea of who is involved in the visit, what their role is, and of course, what they'll be doing during the visit. We'll also take a look at the outcome for each visit, including the structure of the report that will be used to document the mid-year visit. And we've reserved some time to address frequently asked questions toward the conclusion of the session. Please note, it is recommended that support visits be held in person whenever possible. The principal and superintendent or designee may collaboratively decide to pivot to a virtual, Teams, or Zoom format if weather, public health, environmental, or other circumstances warrant. In discussing the purpose of the ATSI CEP support visits, I want to stress two things. The first is that all of this work, from conducting a needs assessment, uncovering root causes, and developing your goals and action plans this past spring, refining your CEP prior to the visit, engaging in the support visit itself, to the follow-up work, is all in support of implementing a high-quality strategic plan through a continuous improvement lens to help move your school forward. Here in New York City, that plan is the CEP, the Comprehensive Education Plan. Please keep that in mind throughout the process. Everything we learn, everything we discuss throughout the visits should support implementation and fine-tuning your current CEP. Next spring, that focus will begin to shift toward developing next year's CEP. The second idea is that SED does not view this as a one-size-fits-all process. Schools have been identified for different reasons and subgroups, and the different elements of the visits including the structure of the team and the expertise of its members, all reflect that idea. Let's unpack some guidance that has been provided by the State Education Department around this process. SED has told us that the district, which in this case is the Division of School Leadership at Central New York City DOE, in collaboration with superintendents and district teams, is responsible for conducting the ATSI CEP support visits, and they will be completed as 1.5 to 3 hour visits. In terms of the schools that are going to engage in this process, only schools that have been identified for the Additional Targeted Support and Improvement ATSI support model or the Targeted Support and Improvement TSI support model will be part of this process. There are currently a total of 22 schools. 14 were identified for the ATSI support model, and 8 were identified for the TSI support model in March of 2023 under New York State's one-year ESSA Accountability Restart, which was based on data from the 2021-22 school year. All principals will be notified shortly that they will be visited. Directors of State Federal Program Implementation, DSFPs, will begin the process of confirming dates, times, and team members to confirm initial visits shortly. We anticipate beginning visits in early to mid-November. As you may know, the CEP is the school's roadmap. It helps all members of the school community know what the major priorities and goals are for that school year, as well as the checkpoints along the way. The vision for the ATSI CEP support visits is that the district, New York City DOE in this case, along with superintendents and their teams, will check in with each school at 5 different points within the school year. Once in the fall, during November or December, again in February or March, near or just after the midpoint of the school year to align with middle-of-year progress monitoring, then in the spring, in April, to kick off the conversation about next year's goals, again in May, during the 4th visit, to continue developing the draft 2024-25 CEP, and one last time toward the end of the school year in June to complete the draft 2024-25 CEP. We've also built in optional additional visits early in the summer at the principal's request. As a reminder, it is SED's expectation that schools identified for ATSI or TSI support models have a completed CEP in place on the first day of school. Within the overall process, each visit does have a unique focus given when it occurs during the school year. The purpose of Visit 1 is to reflect on initial implementation and provides the option to gather feedback from students by re-engaging in the student interview process that began in the spring. Visit 2 really looks at those mid-year benchmarks to determine if the school is on track to meet its annual goals and to make adjustments to action plans. It also provides opportunities to engage with parents and families via a focus group and observe practices in action through classroom visits. Visit 3 begins the shift toward planning for next year by identifying key learnings as a result of implementing this plan and engaging in needs assessment activities to begin drafting goals for 2024-25. Visit 4 provides additional shoulder-to-shoulder support in CEP development, and Visit 5 helps prepare for the submission of the completed draft 2024-25 CEP. If the principal would like to continue that shoulder-to-shoulder CEP development support, they can request additional support visits at their discretion. Here is an illustration of what each ATSI CEP support visit may include. The first component is a check-in or a conversation with the principal and any key constituents the principal may want to invite, during which the principal and team will check in on progress toward achieving each of the school's goals. Seeing some of the practices discussed in action via classroom visits with a focus on classes that serve students from identified subgroups is required during the second visit, but optional during other visits at the superintendent's discretion. For example, if your school was identified for the Students with Disabilities subgroup, it follows that the team would see practices in classrooms that serve students with disabilities. We'll engage with stakeholders and discuss their perceptions by providing the option to revisit student interviews from the spring during Visit 1 and conducting parent and family focus groups during Visit 2. Finally, the team will meet with the principal to determine what, if any, updates to the CEP would be appropriate given the conversations and practices observed throughout the visit. The last piece is logistical. Given the number of people involved in the process and the overall challenge presented by coordinating schedules, we ask that the final activity be to schedule the next visit as the meeting concludes. So, principals and team members, please have your calendars accessible at the end of each meeting. Let's take a quick look at who will be visiting your schools. I'd like to spend a moment reiterating that this process is a collaborative effort between the Division of School Leadership and our superintendent's teams, as well as principals and their teams. And so we are working with our partners across the DOE to customize the visits to best align with each district team's structure, resources, and vision. So if your visit team looks a little bit different than the general structure we've shared here, that's fine. We want to leverage the talents of all of our partners in this process. The Director of State Federal Program Implementation, DSFP, assigned to your superintendent will directly support each school, guide or facilitate the process as the co-lead, and ensure that all appropriate NYSED protocols are followed. Often, the DSFP will also take the lead in drafting the progress monitoring section of the mid-year report. Every principal of a school identified for the ATSI or TSI support model can expect to receive an email from their DSFP in early November to schedule their visit. Most review teams will also include a district representative as the other co-lead. The district rep will usually be a member of the superintendent's team. Essentially, this should be someone who works with the school on a regular basis and is familiar with the principal's vision for school improvement. Often, this person will take the lead in drafting the summary of classroom visits for the mid-year report. Many teams will also include a content area specialist from the district team as well. As experts in a particular subgroup, for example, English language learners or multilingual learners, or students with disabilities, their role is to share that subgroup-specific expertise with the team. I also want to emphasize that this suggested team structure is not meant to exclude anyone on the superintendent's team who has expertise in another area from being part of the team. If a school identified for this support model happens to have a large population of students in temporary housing, and it makes sense to include an STH liaison to help reflect upon and refine strategies for those students, please feel free to do so. Another example might be a school that has a strong emphasis on social-emotional learning. If there is a logical match in terms of need or focus and expertise, by all means, add them to the team. These are just some of the examples highlighting how team structure may vary across districts and superintendencies. Please customize this process to align to the unique structure, resources, and vision of your district and superintendent. If there are questions, please reach out to your DSFP who can answer them or share them with us on the State Federal Education Policy team within the Division of School Leadership at Central. Here is a little more about what to expect during the ATSI CEP support visit at a particular school. The discussion around how implementation is going and progress toward achieving annual goals will last approximately 30 to 60 minutes. Then, the team may see those practices in action through classroom visits for half an hour to an hour. Remember, that is required during Visit 2, the mid-year visit, and optional for other visits. If the superintendent or designee chooses to engage in classroom visits during other visits, more time may need to be allotted. To engage with stakeholders, the first visit will include an option to revisit the student interview process that began in the spring. And the second visit will include a parent-family focus group, and there will be other opportunities for team members to engage in informal conversations with stakeholders. Then the team will wrap up, discuss any potential updates to the CEP, and schedule the following visit during the last half hour. I want to be clear that the timeframes are provided as a general guide, not a strict mandate. Team members should rely on their professional judgment and collaborate with the principal to meet the objectives of the visit. We're more concerned with providing high-quality support to principals and schools through a continuous improvement lens than we are with checking boxes and meeting suggested timeframes to the minute. On this slide is a chart that outlines the process and timeframe for visits 1 and 2. The entire chart will be included in the initial email to principals in order to provide the year-long context on a single page. It includes a brief overview of each of the 5 support visits, as well as the focus and outcome of each visit. For Visit 1, which will take place in November or December, the focus is really to check in on initial implementation of the CEP via conversation with the principal and any other key members of their team, and review Progress Monitoring Period 1 beginning of year data with an option to revisit the student interviews. As we've mentioned before, visits to classrooms are optional during Visit 1. The outcome of this visit is that any updates or changes to the school's CEP action plans are reflected in iPlan, and the school completes the progress reporting tool for Period 1 in iPlan. There is no formal report. The updates in iPlan are the tangible outcome for Visit 1. For Visit 2, which will occur in February or March, the focus is on mid-year progress monitoring and reflecting on whether the school is on track toward meeting its annual goals. This time, classroom visits are required, as well as a parent-family focus group. The outcome for this visit is a formal report. During the visit, the team should discuss with the principal whether the school feels like it is on track, almost on track, or not on track to achieve its annual goals. That status, along with a summary of the conversation for each goal and a summary of the classroom visits, should be reflected in the report, which will be drafted by the DSFP in collaboration with the team and principal. As mentioned earlier, we recommend having the DSFP draft the portion of the report that deals with progress monitoring and mid-year benchmarks, and having the other co-lead draft the classroom visit summary. But this is only a recommendation. The superintendent or designee can customize the roles as needed. For Visit 3, which will most likely occur in April, the focus is initial development of the CEP for the 2024-25 school year, including planning for needs assessment activities, root cause analysis, and engaging in a conversation around each goal, reflection on the current goals, whether it makes sense to continue with that goal or change it significantly moving forward. The outcome for this visit is that the school's needs assessment is complete and ready to inform the initial conversation around 2024-25 goal development for the school. For Visit 4, which will occur in May, the focus is on providing the school's team with shoulder-to-shoulder support to build out the draft CEP, including the goals, action plans, progress monitoring, and other sections. The outcome for this visit is the continued development of the 25 CEP in the iPlan portal. Moving on to Visit 5, the last required visit of the year. Teams will work with schools to ensure that the completed draft 2024-25 CEP is submitted on time via iPlan and meets all SED requirements. Your DSFP, in collaboration with other team members, will provide shoulder-to-shoulder support in completing this. Schools should also complete the progress reporting tool for the final progress monitoring period, end of year, for the 23-24 school year. Principals can request additional visits to facilitate completion of or revisions to their draft CEPs on an ongoing basis throughout the summer. In the spirit of transparency and authentic collaboration, we also wanted to share some of the conversation prompts and guidance shared by SED around the CEP implementation conversations. On this slide, you can see that SED has provided some sample questions to begin the conversation around CEP action plan implementation and determining progress toward achieving annual goals. While we wouldn't anticipate the team members asking these questions verbatim, they do provide some good conversation starters. As an aside to any ATSI CEP support visit team members, this highlights the importance of familiarizing yourself with the school's CEP. We know many team members work with the schools they are visiting frequently, and we'd certainly expect them to be familiar with the school's goals, progress monitoring targets, and action plans. But there may also be some team members who are interacting with the school for the first time on the day of the visit. Please be sure that you are familiar with the school's goals, action plans, and progress monitoring information in iPlan, with a focus on any identified subgroups. If you have any questions about how to access a school's information in iPlan, please reach out to the DSFP who can assist. Encourage schools to examine both their formative data to help determine if the activities and strategies in their action plans are achieving the desired results this year, as well as their summative data to both project accountability results moving forward and determine the effectiveness of last year's strategies. As mentioned earlier, during the second visit, which is the mid-year February-March visit, as the team wraps up the conversation about each action plan and the progress the school has made toward achieving its annual goals, the principal is asked to reflect on progress toward each goal. Schools may consider the data and information that they have entered into the progress reporting tool in iPlan, as well as beginning of year and middle of year screener data. The principal will be asked to reflect and share whether they believe the school is on track, almost on track, or not on track to achieve each of its annual goals. And that information will be included in the mid-year report. This is about continuous improvement, not evaluation. So we really want to emphasize that ATSI CEP support visits are a collaborative, supportive process, as opposed to the evaluative processes some schools may have engaged in the past. And the purpose is to support the school in identifying updates to the plan to help achieve its annual goals. Again, SED has provided teams with some conversation starters that can be used to begin the discussion. As a reminder, only the Visit to Mid-Year Report template asks the principal if the school is on track, almost on track, or off track in terms of its trajectory toward achieving the annual goal. There is always a notes box right underneath the status, which can be used to add any clarification or provide additional context. Again, the purpose of this reflection is to support any CEP updates that may be necessary to help the school achieve its goals. As we want this to be a transparent and collaborative process, we want to be clear about the report template for the mid-year visit, which is similar to last year's report. Our recommendation is that DSFPs take the lead in drafting the progress monitoring section of the report. They should collaborate with the other team members. Another recommendation is that the other co-lead take the lead in drafting the summary of classroom visits. No report should be finalized until the principal has had an opportunity to read through it, provide feedback, and suggest updates if needed. At the top is general identifying district and school information, school name, principal, grade served, etc. Next are the school's CEP goals. The following section asks for ESSA performance data for any subgroups for which the school has been identified. We are currently working to ensure this information is pre-populated into each school's report template prior to the mid-year visits, which begin in February. The final section on the first page includes the visit date and the participants. The last part of the report template really speaks to the ultimate purpose of the visits: to support schools in reflecting on CEP implementation and gauge progress toward achieving year-end goals. For each goal, and in this context, I'd like to clarify that we're talking about each goal under each of the Chancellor's priorities. There is a mid-year visit summary, which includes the priority and goal above the box, and then the summary of status for the mid-year visit. The only other element is recording whether the principal has indicated that the school is on track, almost on track, or not on track toward achieving the annual goal. Again, principals will have a chance to review the report for accuracy and provide feedback if necessary before any report is finalized. Principals, I want to stress that this is a process in which we want to engage with you and your school community, not something we want to do to you and your school. Finally, I'd like to clarify that this slide indicates a snippet of the report, and that each goal for each priority in the school's CEP will be included on the mid-year report. So most schools will have at least 7 goals, a minimum of 1 for each of the Chancellor's 5 priorities, plus 1 for chronic absenteeism, and another for quality IEP. As we discussed earlier, SED has provided some guidance around their vision for the mid-year summary report, and we want to share that with you. SED is asking that the summary consist of 2 to 4 concise sentences written in simple language and free of opinion or conjecture. Just report the facts. SED has also given us some sample prompts to help start the conversation, and they may be useful for visit team members, principals, and their teams to consider as they prepare for the visits. They include what's been done so far, any challenges or potential barriers the school has encountered, any results that may not have been expected, and what the next steps may be. We are happy to share some resources to support schools identified for the ATSI and TSI support models in their work this year. While these resources and professional learning opportunities are available to all schools, those that have been identified for English language learners or students with disabilities may find the targeted supports particularly relevant. Linked on this slide are the Info Hub and SharePoint site for the Division of Multilingual Learners, which hosts many useful resources to support instruction and policy for multilingual learners. Also linked here is the Special Education Office's SharePoint site, which contains many resources to support instruction as well as regulatory compliance for students with disabilities, and the Special Education Office's Professional Learning Catalog. The last link is to the iPlan Public Resources page, which includes detailed guidance documents, webinars, and other resources to support comprehensive education planning. Now that we've covered the visit structure and report template, there are a few other items we'd like to share, and then we'll address any remaining questions. Visits begin in November or December, and we're hoping to complete all Visit 1s by December 22nd, before the holiday break. Just a reminder that these visits will take approximately 1.5 to 2.5 hours, possibly a little bit longer if classroom visits are included during all visits. Again, we're more concerned with the quality of support that the school receives in analyzing progress and updating its action plans than the exact length of the visit. But please use common sense and let this guidance be just that, guidance. Visits are still being scheduled, so principals, if you receive any TBDs in your email, either for team members or a date and time, please be on the lookout for an update from your DSFP with that information, as they will manage communication with the team. As always, Your DSFP is your first point of contact to address any questions or concerns. They also have a direct line to our team at Central. We'd also like to remind visit teams of some best practices for conducting meaningful student interviews. The principal or designee should ensure that parental permission has been granted for student interviews. In addition, engaging with students and getting their opinion on how implementation is going should be an ongoing conversation, not a one-time only discussion. It's also a good idea to share topics in advance so students come with their best ideas. The full document with detailed guidance from the State Education Department is linked at the bottom of this slide. As a reminder, revisiting student interviews from the spring is an optional activity during visit number 1. Contact information for DSFPs is available using the link on this slide. Please feel free to reach out to them with any school or district questions around ATSI CEP support visits. Let's check our Q&A and see if there are any questions we can address for everyone. The first one. In the past, consultants were part of this process, and they took the lead on report writing. Will consultants be part of the process this year? Unfortunately, no. We are not able to bring consultants on as part of the process this year. There is only one written report, and that is after Visit 2, the mid-year visit. Directors of State Federal Program Implementation, your DSFP, will take the lead in drafting the report, sharing it with the other team members and the principal for feedback. Next question. Is there any flexibility in the time frame for completing the visits? We've emphasized throughout the presentation that flexibility is key. While we do believe that a time frame leading up to the December holiday break for completing all Visit 1s makes sense, we also understand that extenuating circumstances may exist or occur. We encourage you to work together as a team, and if you really feel like you're stuck, to make adjustments and customize the process as needed. DSFPs can always turn to the central team for additional guidance as well. Next question. Can a superintendent require classroom visits during ATSI CEP support visits 1, 3, 4, and 5? Can a superintendent require the school to create a data presentation for the visit? As we mentioned during the presentation, flexibility is key. The State Education Department does not view this as a one-size-fits-all process, and neither do we at the New York City DOE. District teams should make adjustments and customize the process to best meet the needs of their schools and best leverage their resources. If that customization includes additional classroom visits and/or school data presentations, that's fine. What we've given you here today is a framework that meets state requirements. If and how each superintendent and district team customizes the process to align with their needs, resources, and vision is up to them. Last question. Can the visits be conducted remotely? First, we want to acknowledge that the public health situation has evolved considerably since we rolled these visits out during the pandemic, and it continues to evolve. We currently recommend that support visits be held in person whenever possible to best support authentic observation and interaction. That said, the principal and superintendent or designee may collaboratively decide to pivot to a virtual Teams or Zoom format if public health, weather, environmental, or other circumstances warrant. Any modifications to the required ATSI CEP support visit elements should be the result of a collaborative conversation between the superintendent or designee and the principal. If there are specific questions, please reach out to your DSFP or to the state federal planning team within the Division of School Leadership. Thank you again for your time and participation. We hope you found the webinar to be informative, and we want to reiterate our best wishes for all members of our New York City community, along with a productive, supportive set of ATSI CEP support visits this school year.